On our 25th anniversary, with candlelight flickering and a melody from our wedding playing softly in the background, he raised his glass and shattered my world. "I want a divorce," he declared, his voice steady as the bubbles in the champagne danced like my dreams, bursting one by one. 25 years of laughter, tears, and shared secrets evaporated in that single moment, leaving only the chilling echo of betrayal. I watched him, the man I thought I knew, and realized I was standing on the desperate edge of a life I never wanted. My name is Elise. I am not just a victim. I am reclaiming my story. The evening air felt heavy around me, thick with unspoken words and the weight of shattered dreams. I could barely hear the clinking of glasses from the other couples seated nearby, their laughter a stark contrast to the storm brewing within my chest. As I stood frozen, the remnants of our anniversary dinner fading into the background, I felt the walls closing in, suffocating me with their relentless pressure. I focused on Grace, sitting across the table, her eyes flickering between her father and me, confusion etched on her young face. I wanted to reach out to her, to reassure her that everything would be okay, but how could I promise that when my own world was collapsing? Thomas's voice echoed in my mind, each word a dagger that cut deeper than the last. "I've been struggling for a long time," he had said, his gaze drifting away from mine as if he couldn't bear the weight of my pain. I wanted to scream, to shake him out of this delusion, but instead I sat silently, the smile on my face a fragile mask that threatened to shatter. How had I missed the signs? The late nights at work, the distant looks. The unspoken tension between us had gradually woven a tapestry of neglect that I had chosen to ignore. I had been so devoted to preserving our family, to maintaining the illusion of happiness, that I had failed to see the fraying edges of our marriage. "Mom?" Grace's voice broke through my reverie, soft and uncertain. I turned to her, trying to muster a semblance of courage. "Are you okay?" The concern in her eyes was palpable, and at that moment, I realized I needed to protect her from this chaos. I couldn't let her bear the burden of her father's decision. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I lied, forcing a smile that felt like a betrayal of its own. It was a small, desperate attempt to shield her from the truth, but the knot in my stomach told me it was only a temporary fix. As we left the restaurant, the cool night air hit my face, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the celebration that had turned sour. The car ride home was filled with silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Grace sat in the back, scrolling through her phone, while Thomas kept his eyes fixed on the road, his expression unreadable. I sat in the passenger seat, feeling like a ghost in my own life, existing in a space that no longer felt familiar. The weight of his revelation loomed over us like a dark cloud, and I wondered how we would weather this storm together. Once home, the sad facade began to crumble. Grace retreated to her room, closing the door softly, leaving Thomas and me in a tense standoff in the living room. I could feel the distance between us like an unbridgeable chasm. The words I wanted to say stuck in my throat. Instead of confronting him, I busied myself with mundane tasks. Folding laundry and arranging cushions, anything to avoid the inevitable confrontation. But the emptiness of our home echoed louder with each passing moment, amplifying the disconnection we both felt. "Do you really want this?" I finally asked, my voice quivering with a mix of disbelief and desperation. He turned to look at me, his eyes heavy with a burden I couldn't begin to fathom. "I don't know, Elise," he admitted, each word dripping with resignation. "I just feel lost." His honesty was a double-edged sword, cutting through the anger I felt, but also revealing the cracks in his facade. My heart ached for the man I had loved, the one who had promised to stand by me through thick and thin. "Then let's figure it out together," I hopeful, my voice steadier than I felt. "We can seek help. We can talk to someone." But as I watched him shake his head, I knew he had already made up his mind. The next few days unfolded in a haze of numbness and disbelief. I busied myself with work and domestic chores, clinging to the rhythm of daily life to distract myself from the emotional whirlwind. Yet, every time I looked into Grace's eyes, I saw the questions she dared not voice, and guilt gnawed at my insides. I tried to create a sense of normalcy, engaging her in her favorite activities, baking cookies together, and watching movies, but the undercurrent of tension was always there, weaving itself into our laughter. Robert, my brother, sensed the turmoil before I even had a chance to reach out. He showed up unannounced one evening, his presence a comforting balm amidst the chaos. "Hey sis," he said gently, pulling me into a warm embrace. "I've been worried about you." His genuine concern made me feel safe enough to let my guard down, if only for a moment. Sitting on the couch together, I unspooled the events of the last week, the tears that had been held at bay finally flowing freely. Robert listened without interruption, offering a shoulder to cry on and hopeful words of encouragement that reminded me I wasn't alone in this battle. "Have you thought about what you want?" he asked, after I had poured out my heart. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications I hadn't fully considered. I had been so focused on maintaining a facade for Grace and salvaging our family that I had neglected my own needs, my own desires. "I don't know, Rob," I admitted, wiping my eyes. "I just want things to go back to normal." But deep down, I knew that the normal I craved was a mirage, an unreachable ideal that had slipped through my fingers the moment Thomas spoke those words. In that moment of vulnerability, I realized that I had a choice. I could wallow in despair, or begin to forge my own path forward, despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of my brother's presence bolster my resolve. It was time to reclaim my narrative and rebuild my life brick by brick. The next morning, the sun filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a gentle light in the kitchen where I stood, staring blankly at the coffee pot as it gurgled. The aroma of brewing coffee should have been comforting, but instead, it felt like a cruel reminder of the life I thought I had. I pulled a mug from the cabinet, my fingers tracing the delicate floral pattern on its surface, a wedding gift from Thomas years ago. The weight of that memory hung heavily in the air, and I could almost hear our laughter echoing as I poured the dark liquid. I needed to focus on today, on what lay ahead, and not on the past that was slipping away. Grace wandered in, her hair tousled, still lost in the remnants of sleep. She blinked at me, her expression a mix of confusion and concern. I forced a smile, the kind that felt more like a mask than a genuine expression. "Good morning, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I made coffee. Would you like some?" She nodded slowly, settling at the kitchen table, her brow furrowed. I watched as she absent-mindedly fiddled with her phone, the glow of the screen illuminating her face in a way that made her look older than her 16 years. It pained me to see her like this, caught in the chaos of our family's unraveling. "Are you okay, Mom?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as though the weight of my heartache had seeped into her own. "I'm okay," I replied, but the lie felt heavy on my tongue. I poured her a cup and slid it across the table, choosing to focus on her instead of my own pain. "How was school yesterday?" Her shoulders slumped, and she took a sip, grimacing slightly at the bitterness. "It was fine, I guess." Silence hung between us, thick and uncomfortable. I had, fearful, never felt so distant from my daughter, and it frightened me. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but I wasn't sure how to bridge the gap that had formed overnight. "Grace," I began, my heart racing, "I know things are different now." She looked up at me, her sad eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You mean with Dad?" I nodded slowly, the sad weight of the truth pressing down. "Yes, but it's important that we talk about it. I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what." "I don't understand why he would do this," she said, her voice cracking, frustration bleeding into her tone. "Everything seemed fine." "Sometimes we don't see what's happening inside someone else," I said softly, remembering Thomas's tortured expression from the night before. People struggle in ways we might not realize, but I promise you, this isn't your fault. Her gaze dropped back to her phone, and I could sense the waves of emotions crashing through her. I wanted to reach out, to hold her hand, but I feared pushing her further away. Instead, I filled the silence with mundane questions about her upcoming school events, trying to find a footing in this new reality we were both grappling with. As the days passed, I found myself leaning on Robert more than ever. He had always been my anchor, the one person who seemed to understand the complexities of our family dynamics. I could call him any time, and he would drop everything to be there. One afternoon, I invited him over for tea, eager for his perspective and support. When he arrived, he looked around the house, his brow furrowing slightly as he took in the telltale signs of our turmoil: the scattered papers, the unwashed dishes, the faint remnants of last night's dinner on the counter. "Hey, how are you holding up?" he asked, concern etched into his features as he settled into the armchair across from me. "I'm surviving," I replied, attempting to add a touch of levity to my words. "But I have to admit, it's harder than I thought it would be." Robert nodded, his gaze steady and reassuring. "You're strong, Elise. You've always been. But you can't do this alone. You need to let people in." I sighed, feeling the weight of his words. "I just don't want to burden anyone with my problems, especially Grace. Let her see your struggle. It's okay to be vulnerable. You're showing her that it's normal to feel lost sometimes," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "You're her role model, Elise. How you handle this will shape how she deals with challenges in the future." His words resonated with me. I had spent years protecting Grace from pain, but in doing so, perhaps I had deprived her of the lessons that come from facing life's difficulty. I felt a hopeful flicker of determination ignite within me. "You're right," I admitted. "I need to show her that it's okay to feel broken as long as we find a way to heal." Robert leaned forward, his expression softening. "And I'll be here every step of the way. We're family, and family supports each other no matter what." As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue through the window, I felt a hopeful sense of hope begin to bloom within me. Maybe I didn't have to carry this burden alone. With each passing day, I would discover new ways to navigate the wreckage of my marriage while nurturing my relationship with Grace. Together, we could forge a new identity, one built on resilience and love. And with Robert by my side, I felt less like I was stumbling in the dark. As I sipped my tea, I realized that sometimes it takes the breaking of something beautiful for new beginnings to sprout. I could feel the cracks forming the groundwork for something different, something uniquely mine. I was confident, ready to embrace the unknown, to step boldly into the future, and to show Grace that while life could be painful, it also held the hopeful promise of profound growth and transformation. And so, I resolved to keep moving forward, one day at a time, trusting that amidst the chaos, I would find clarity and strength. If you want to continue this journey with me, join me on this exploration of resilience and healing. Subscribe and stay connected as I share the lessons that arise from the depths of life's challenges. The following days turned into a blur of routine and chaos, where I tried to balance my emotions while keeping everything else together. Grace had taken the news harder than I anticipated. I noticed her silence, the way she would stare out the window, lost in thought, as if the world outside had become a distant dream. Every now and then, she would snap back to reality, her eyes flicking toward me with questions unasked, lingering on the tip of her tongue. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her that it would all be okay, but how could I promise that when I felt so lost myself? I tried to create small moments of normalcy, a family movie night, a pancake breakfast, and even a trip to the park. But each time, the laughter felt forced, and the joy seemed to hover just out of reach, like a ghost that never quite revealed itself. Meanwhile, Thomas was a mere shadow of the man I once knew. He remained largely absent from our home, retreating to the spare bedroom with only distant echoes of his presence. The silence between us was deafening, as if the very walls were mourning the loss of our shared dreams. I caught myself occasionally peering at him through the crack of the door, wondering who he was now, this man who had once held my hand and promised me forever. I remembered our wedding day vividly, the vows exchanged, the laughter shared. But now I was left grappling with a reality where those memories felt like fragments of a dream that had long since faded. Robert had become my anchor during this storm. He would stop by often, bringing with him not just company, but a sense of unwavering support that I desperately needed. I could see the concern etched on his face, the worry he tried to mask with a smile. He would pull me aside, encouraging me to talk about my feelings, urging me to let it all out. "You can't carry this alone, Elise," he insisted one evening as we sat on the back porch, the sun dipping below the horizon. I appreciated his attempts to be my confidant, yet I often found myself hesitating. The weight of my emotions felt too heavy to share, as if verbalizing them would make them all the more real. One evening, as twilight enveloped the sky, I found Grace sitting on the floor of her room, surrounded by scattered papers and art supplies. Her latest project, a collage of photographs and scribbles, was a reflection of her turmoil, a silent expression of what she couldn't put into words. I knocked softly on the door before entering. "Hey, can I join you?" I asked, hoping to bridge the distance that had formed between us. Grace glanced up, her eyes brightening for a brief moment before fading again. "I guess," she murmured, and I settled beside her, a mix of apprehension and hope coursing through me. "What are you working on?" I asked, my voice gentle, as I picked up a photograph of the three of us from a family vacation. We were laughing, caught in a moment of unguarded joy. "Just something," she replied, her tone distant. I studied the collage, filled with images of her friends, snippets of poetry, and drawings that whispered of her inner world. "It's beautiful," I said, but the praise felt inadequate. I wanted to understand her pain, to reach into her heart and pull out the hurt, but I didn't know how. "I don't get it, Mom," she finally broke the silence. "Why would he do this?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of all the unspoken fears and emotions. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "People change, Grace. Sometimes they lose themselves along the way," I replied, softly, wishing I could protect her from the harsh realities of life. "It's not your fault, and it's certainly not mine." Tears began to pool in her eyes, and I felt a surge of empathy wash over me. She was hurting just as much as I was, navigating this turbulent sea with no clear direction. I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "It's okay to feel sad, to be angry," I said, encouraging her to embrace her emotions rather than shying away from them. "We'll figure this out together." Her grip tightened around my fingers, and in that moment, I realized how much we needed each other, how this experience, as painful as it was, could also forge an unbreakable bond between us. As the days turned into weeks, I began to allow myself hope amidst the heartbreak. I started taking long walks in the evenings, allowing the fresh air to clear my mind. I found solace in the rhythm of my feet against the pavement, each step a reminder that I was still moving forward, still capable of finding light in the shadows. I'd passed the local cafe where Thomas and I had shared countless lattes and conversations. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee tugging at my heartstrings. But I, confident, refused to let nostalgia bind me to the past. I needed to reclaim my life, to redefine who I was outside of being a wife. It was during one of these walks that I stumbled upon a small art gallery, its vibrant colors and inviting ambience pulling me in. I felt an inexplicable urge to explore, and as I wandered through the exhibits, I discovered a new passion for creativity awakening within me. The art spoke to me, igniting a spark that had long been dormant. I found myself captivated, imagining how I might express my own feelings through this medium. It was as if the universe had whispered a message. Life continues to unfold, and so must I. With each stroke of the brush or pencil, I could breathe life into my emotions, transforming pain into something beautiful and real. In those moments of discovery, I began to see a glimmer of the woman I once was and could become again. A woman confident, resilient enough to stand tall in the face of adversity, strong enough to reshape her destiny. I wasn't just a mother or a wife. I was Elise, a vibrant being capable of carving out her own path, no matter how daunting it might seem. This realization was my first step toward healing, a powerful shift that ignited a fire within me, urging me to embrace the unknown and all its possibilities. As the days turned into weeks, the shock of Thomas's words began to morph into a dull ache, a constant reminder of the life we had built together that now felt so fragile. I often sat at the kitchen table, staring at the same spot where the sunlight would filter through the curtains in the morning, illuminating the remnants of what once was. Grace would come in and offer a soft smile, but I could see the sad worry etched in her eyes, the way she tried to hold it all together while the foundation of our family was crumbling. It broke my heart to think that my daughter was carrying this burden, and so I made a conscious effort to maintain our routines, to shield her from the chaos that raged within me. Yet no amount of pretending could mask the tension that hung in the air. There were moments when I would catch Grace looking at me, a silent plea for reassurance reflected in her gaze. I wanted to be the mother who could provide that comfort, but the weight of my own sadness often eclipsed my ability to be present. I decided to take a trip with her, a small getaway to the mountains where we could breathe fresh air and maybe even reconnect. I suggested the idea one evening, my voice tentative yet hopeful, and to my relief, Grace agreed with a nod, her eyes lighting up for the first time in weeks. The drive was filled with hopeful and reminiscing about past family trips, an antidote to the silence that had grown so loud between us. As we ascended the winding roads, I felt a sense of peace begin to settle in, as though the mountains were embracing us and our troubles could be left behind, if only for a little while. When we arrived at the cabin, nestled among towering pines, I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me. This was where we had spent many summers, where Thomas had chased Grace through the woods, laughing until his sides hurt, back when we were a united front against the world. That first evening, we cooked dinner together, Grace taking charge of the pasta while I prepared a simple salad. We exchanged jokes and stories, and for a moment, I allowed myself to forget the fractures in our lives. Sitting at the dinner table, I watched her as she animatedly recounted a recent school project, her passion infectious. I realized that she was growing into her own person, and I felt a happy flicker of pride mixed with sorrow, knowing she shouldn't have to bear the weight of my struggles. Later that night, after we had cleaned up, I suggested we stargaze outside. Wrapped in blankets, we lay on the cabin's porch, staring at the tapestry of stars above. The night was calm, and I felt a sense of clarity settle over me. Grace began to share her thoughts about the divorce, her voice soft but steady. "Mom, I don't want things to change. I want us to be happy again," she said, her vulnerability shining through the darkness. I took a deep breath, the weight of her words heavy in the air. "I want that too, sweetie," I replied, my voice wavering. "But happiness can look different sometimes. We're going to find a new way to be happy." As I spoke, I realized that I had to be honest about my own feelings, to let Grace see that it was okay to feel lost. I shared with her how I had been coping, the moments of fear, but also the sparks of resilience that were starting to emerge within me. I hoped that by being open, I could help her navigate her own feelings about our family's new reality. The next morning, I awoke to the smell of fresh coffee wafting through the cabin. Grace was already awake, her determination evident as she brewed the morning's first cup. I felt a happy rush of gratitude wash over me, appreciating this budding independence in her. Over breakfast, we made plans for the day, deciding to explore a nearby hiking trail that led to a waterfall. The idea of immersing ourselves in nature felt like a balm for our aching hearts. As we trekked along the winding path, the sounds of birds chirping and the rustle of leaves enveloped us, creating a sense of sanctuary away from our troubles. Grace moved ahead, her spirit lifting as she leaped over rocks and navigated the uneven terrain with a confidence I hadn't seen in a while. I followed behind, savoring the sight of her becoming, her laughter echoing off the trees. It reminded me of who we were before all of this, an adventurous family who found joy in the little things. When we finally reached the waterfall, I stood in awe at its beauty, the water cascading over the rocks in a shimmering veil. It was a moment of pure serenity, and I felt the weight of my worries start to dissolve into the mist. Grace danced around the edges, splashing her feet in the cool water, her playful laughter ringing out like music. I couldn't help but smile, the sound of her joy revitalizing my spirit. As we settled on a large rock, I took a moment to reflect on what had brought us here. I realized that while the divorce was an undeniable part of our story, it didn't have to define us. I knew that I had the power to choose how to move forward, to shape our new life with intention and love. I turned to Grace, her face illuminated by the sunlight, and said, "No matter what happens, you and I will always have each other. We can create our own happiness." Her eyes, hopeful, sparkled with understanding, and in that moment, I felt a profound sense of hope. I wasn't just surviving, I was confident, beginning to thrive. Together, we would learn to navigate this uncharted territory, finding our way with each step we took. As we headed back to the cabin, I felt lighter, as though the burden of uncertainty was slowly lifting. The journey ahead might be daunting, but I now understood that I wasn't alone. Grace was by my side, and with her, we would forge a new path, one filled with resilience, love, and the promise of brighter days ahead. As we settled into the cabin, the warmth of the fire flickering in the hearth created an inviting atmosphere, yet the weight of my emotions lingered like a dense fog. Grace and I exchanged glances, an unspoken understanding passing between us. In that moment, I realized how essential our bond had become, a thread that would keep us both anchored through this tumultuous storm. I watched as she moved about the room, meticulously unpacking the few items we had brought with us. Her actions, methodical, yet reflective of her own inner turmoil. I knew she was grappling with her father's words, just as I was, and I felt a desperate sense of urgency to reassure her. "Hey, Grace," I began, my voice tentative but steady. "Do you want to go for a walk? The trails out here are beautiful. Fresh air might do us both some good." Her eyes hopefully brightened slightly at the suggestion, and she nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Together, we slipped into our jackets and stepped outside, the crisp air hitting us with a chill that felt invigorating. The forest surrounded us, tall trees standing as silent sentinels bearing witness to our struggles. We walked in comfortable silence for a while, the crunch of leaves underfoot echoing our unsteady hearts. I couldn't help but steal glances at her, taking in the way she clutched her phone tightly, as if it were a sad lifeline to her old life, a reminder of the normalcy that had been ripped away. "Mom, do you think things will ever go back to how they were?" Her question pierced the quiet, and I felt the ache in my chest deepen. I took a deep breath, weighing my words carefully. "I don't know, Grace. Change is hard, and it takes time. But I do believe that, hopeful, we can create a new kind of normal together." She stopped walking, turning to face me, her expression a mixture of
hope and fear. What if I can't handle it? What if I lose Dad? The vulnerability in her voice struck me, and I stepped closer, wrapping my arms around her in a gentle, comforting embrace. You're not going to lose him. It might take time for him to sort through his struggles, but he loves you. This doesn't change that. She nodded against me, her body relaxing slightly.
But I could sense the uncertainty still simmering beneath the surface. We continued walking, the path winding through the trees, and with each step, I felt a hopeful flicker of resolve building within me. I was confident to be a steadfast source of support for Grace, no matter how challenging the road ahead became. The thought of being a role model for her, showcasing strength in adversity, confident motivated me to push through my own grief. As we reached a clearing, I paused to take in the breathtaking view of the mountains in the distance, their majestic peaks a stark reminder of the beauty that still existed despite the chaos in our lives. "Let's take a picture," I suggested, pulling out my phone. Grace smiled, a spark of joy lighting her features. We positioned ourselves against the backdrop of the mountains, her happy laughter breaking the heaviness that had weighed us down since that fateful night. I captured the moment, a confident snapshot of resilience that would serve as a reminder of our strength. When we returned to the cabin, Grace seemed hopeful, as if the walk had opened a small window of hope in her heart. She retreated to her room, likely seeking solace in her music or friends, while I took the opportunity to call Robert. My brother had always been my rock, and I desperately needed his guidance now more than ever. As the phone rang, I paced the living room, my mind racing with thoughts of everything that had transpired. "Hey, Elise, how's the trip?" he answered, his voice warm and reassuring. "Not what I expected," I admitted, the weight of my emotions spilling over. "Thomas, he asked for a divorce on our anniversary." There was a brief silence on the other end, and I could almost hear him processing the news. "I'm so sorry," he finally said, his tone filled with empathy. "Do you want to talk about it?" I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. But I needed to share my heart with someone who understood. "It's just so hard, Rob. I don't know how to navigate this with Grace. I want to protect her from the hurt, but I also have to face my own pain." His voice softened, filled with genuine concern. "You're stronger than you think, Elise. Remember, it's okay to feel everything you're feeling. Just be there for Grace, and she'll draw strength from you. You're both going to get through this." I sighed, grateful for his unwavering support. "Thank you. I don't want to fail her. I want us to find a way to heal." "You won't fail. Just take it one day at a time," he reassured me. Our conversation drifted to lighter topics, and I found comfort in his laughter, a reminder that amidst the chaos, moments of joy still existed. As night fell, I prepared dinner, the comforting aromas filling the cabin. Grace emerged from her room, her eyes happy, lighting up at the sight of our meal. We shared a simple dinner, discussing everything from her school projects to the latest trends among her friends. I watched her, marveling at her strength, even as I knew she was quietly grappling with the changes in our family. When the dishes were cleared, we settled down on the couch, the flickering fire casting soft shadows around us. In that moment, I recognized that while the road ahead would be filled with uncertainty, we were not alone in our journey. Sharing our stories, supporting each other, and embracing vulnerability would ultimately allow us to emerge stronger.
As I looked at my daughter, I felt a hopeful, renewed sense of purpose. Together, we would navigate this new chapter of our lives, and perhaps one day we would find laughter again. If anyone reading this has faced a similar challenge, I invite you to share your own stories. Together, we can find strength and inspiration as we create our own paths through the storms of life. The next morning, the sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across the kitchen. But I felt like I was in a different world. The familiar sounds of Grace's footsteps and her cheerful humming as she prepared for school echoed in the background, yet it all felt surreal. I tried to focus on the mundane routine of breakfast, pouring cereal and brewing coffee, but my mind was racing with the memories of last night. Thomas's words replayed in my head like a haunting melody, each repetition cutting deeper than the last. I could see the hurt in Grace's eyes as she caught me lost in thought, and I knew I needed to pull myself together. If not for my own sake, then for hers. As I stirred the milk into my coffee, I felt a confident wave of determination wash over me. I had spent too long living for Thomas, for our family, and it was time to redirect that energy toward my hopeful healing. I wanted Grace to see that while love sometimes falters, resilience can flourish. I took a deep breath, put on a smile, and turned to her, asking about her upcoming school play. The conversation gradually shifted the mood, and I felt a hopeful flicker when her eyes lit up with enthusiasm. We spent the morning laughing about her role as a quirky character, and in those moments, the weight on my chest felt a little lighter. When Grace left for school, I stood at the door watching her walk away, a blend of pride and sadness welling up inside me. She was growing up so fast, navigating her own challenges, and I longed to protect her from the pain of the world. Yet, I couldn't shield her from everything. I had to let her experience life, even when it was difficult. With that thought in mind, I resolved to focus on my own journey, starting with a visit to Robert. He had always been my anchor, the confident voice of reason amidst chaos. After a quick drive to his place, I found him in the garden, tending to his plants. He looked up and smiled, that calm warmth radiating from him, and for a moment, I felt the comfort of being home. As I shared the details of my situation, I watched his expression shift from concern to determination. Robert had a way of finding silver linings in dark clouds, and I needed that perspective now more than ever. I know this feels insurmountable, Elise, but you're stronger than you realize, he said, his voice steady. This is your chance to, hopeful, rediscover who you are outside of being a wife and mother. I felt a hopeful flicker of hope ignite within me, but doubt lingered, whispering that I didn't know where to start. Robert must have sensed my hesitation because he suggested we go for a walk, and the fresh air would help clear my mind. We strolled through the neighborhood, the familiar sights bringing back countless memories of our childhood. The trees, once small and fragile, now stood tall, and I realized that change was a natural part of life. "What do you love to do, Elise?" he asked, suddenly breaking the silence. I paused, reflecting on the question that seemed deceptively simple. My life had been so intertwined with Thomas's that I had almost forgotten my own passions. I hesitated, then admitted, I used to love painting. It always brought me peace. "Then that's where you start," he encouraged, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Make time for yourself. You need that outlet now more than ever." I could feel the excitement bubbling within me at the thought of picking up a brush again,
And for the first time in weeks, I felt a shift, a stirring of something vibrant and alive beneath the surface. Back home, I rummaged through the attic, searching for my old art supplies. Dust motes danced in the sunlight as I unearthed canvases and paints I had neglected for years. It felt like rediscovering a forgotten piece of myself, a spark that had dimmed under the weight of my marriage and responsibilities. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I set up a small easel in the living room, ready to dive into the colors and textures that awaited me. I hesitated momentarily, unsure if I had the skill or the right to indulge in this once beloved pastime. But then, with each stroke, I found solace in the act of creation, pouring my emotions onto the canvas as if they could transform into something beautiful. Days turned into weeks, and I made it a ritual to paint every evening after Grace went to bed. The colors I used morphed with my feelings, sometimes bold and angry, other times soft and hopeful. My art became a diary of sorts, capturing the tumultuous emotions I couldn't yet articulate. Each piece reflected the journey I was on, a journey of confident, reclaiming my voice and my identity. Grace started noticing my work, and one evening, she wandered into the living room, her eyes surprised with wonder. "Mom, these are amazing! You should show them to people!" Her confident excitement fueled my confidence, and I began to dream of sharing my art with a broader audience. As I ventured deeper into my passion, I felt the heaviness of the divorce start to lift. The artistic process was cathartic, providing clarity amidst the chaos of my life. I often found myself thinking about the conversations I had with Robert, feeling grateful for his unwavering support. I also recognized my own strength. I had endured heartache and betrayal, but I was learning to rise from the ashes, embracing a new chapter with open arms. Every evening as I painted, I felt a little more like myself. I smiled at the transformation that had begun, realizing that while my marriage had crumbled, it had also paved the way for hopeful, something beautiful to emerge. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges, but I was ready to face it head on, unearthing the hopeful woman I had almost lost along the way. With each brushstroke, I was not just creating art, I was reclaiming my life.